Hey everyone, Gabriel Nassif, and today I'm gonna give you my top 5 cards from Modern Horizon 3 for the modern format. And not an easy task, ton of really powerful cards, lots of playables, but I'm gonna try. There's no way I'm gonna get it right, but I'll give you my top 5, some honorable mentions, and yeah, let's get into it. First honorable mention, Phyrexian Tower, really powerful card, land. It is legendary, so unless the deck really needs that effect, I doubt you'll see more than one or two in most decks. Even in a deck like Yawgmoth, you could argue that getting Yawgmoth into play a turn earlier or two is not even that good. You actually want Yawgmoth once you have creatures in play, but it might enable some strats with Stitcher Supply or Gravecrawler, all these decks. So yeah, definitely gonna see play. Not sure how many copies in which deck, but it will almost 100% see play. Next honorable mention, Nadu Winged Wisdom. It can be a combo card with Shuko. You can build your whole deck around it. It can just be played for value too. If they try to kill it, you get at least a little something back. And if you can enable the trigger yourself, maybe targeting your creatures, those Bowmaster or whatnot, definitely a card that could fit in a few decks. Powerful effect. The body is solid, 3/4 flying for 3 mana. Doesn't die to lightning bolts. So yeah, Nadu. It will definitely see play. Might not end up seeing play in any tier 1 decks, but really cool and powerful card as well. I also wanted to mention Necro Dominance, the balanced version of Necropotence, one of the most powerful cards in the history of Magic, and at times just has dominated formats. So Necro Dominance, it has the downsides of just being 3 mana, kind of hard to cast in some ways. Obviously, if you're playing mono black, it's fine, but I think that card might be a little tricky to build around because you need a lot of cheap cards to make it worth it. And I'm worried that these decks might be underpowered in the games where you don't draw Necro Dominance. When you draw all your cheap cards, maybe you're pitching Grief, using the Black Flare to get some tempo. And if you don't find your Necro Dominance, your draws might fall a little flat. You also do have to get to 3 mana, which is not totally trivial when you're building a deck like that. You don't want to put too many lands if you're playing a lot of cheap cards. And a deck like Rakdos Scam can operate on, a couple lands in some games. You don't always need your third land. You can even operate on 1 land in some of your draws, which might not be the case if you're building your deck around Necro Dominance. But you could also have some cool builds with, some bigger builds, obviously. More expensive cards was the One Ring and Shield Dread. I haven't played Timeless in a while, but just for reference, that was my Necro build. You might notice some cards that will definitely be missing from Modern Horizon, big one being Dark Ritual. Deathrite Shaman also helps you get turn 2 Necro, speed things up. And you can see for Necro, tons of cheap cards, almost no win cons. Honestly, when you draw so many cards and have so much interaction, just Deathrite Shaman, Bowmaster is almost good enough. I had a couple of Trespassers for the meta, and Vraska is a cute way to sag the Necro. And you see I still had 2 copies of the One Ring and Shield Red, and I could see even maybe more copies of the One Ring being right. But that's one way that you could build around Necro Dominance. As you see, just almost my entire deck costs 1 or 2 mana, and Necro Dominance is almost the last card you want to play, and kind of dump your hand, draw a lot of cheap cards. One thing that is nice is that the Black Flare is instant speed, meaning you can, draw up to 6 or 7 cards, play the Black Flare or maybe some other instance, and get kind of max value out of your engine. All right, last honorable mention, Primal Prayers, which is clearly a build around, kind of an energy-based Illurin, and that card could see play, could be a tier 1 archetype. You do have some good enablers in the set, but it is a 4 mana enchantment, which I feel like not quite disqualifying for Modern, but it's going to be an uphill battle, and you can just they can just go also after your creatures and stop your combo that way. So definitely a build around a potential new archetype, which is always exciting, but doesn't quite make my list of the most broken cards in the set. All right, now onto the actual top five, and in fifth position, I'm going to take a chance here. Definitely the more questionable cards of the lot, I think, and it is Glimpse the Impossible. Card advantage, ramp, even fills up your graveyard all in one. And I feel like a very natural home might be the Creativity deck. You play that on turn 3, you get free tokens, meaning that technically you can Creativity for 2 on the following turn, using one of the spawns to make mana and the 2 others to target. In the late game, it's card advantage. If you're playing the Persist version, you can even get lucky and maybe mill one of the Archons. So I feel like that card's just really versatile and always going to do something good. You do want to take advantage of all the synergies as best as possible, but it just does seem as a sweet enabler to me for creativity and maybe some other strategies. So, I do get kind of Fable of the Mirror Breaker vibes. One, because of the casting cost and it's extra mana, some creatures, some potential card advantage, and just a great top deck in the late game too. Great top deck in the late grind games, just potentially like Ancestral Recall or whatever you want to call it. At number 4, I have the Amped Raptor. And once again, one of the things I like about this card is it goes straight into Is It Prowess? You barely have to change your build, and the card will definitely be very powerful in that deck. So that part is nice, but the strategy part might just be very good too, whether you play it with other energy cards or on its own. The downside, obviously, 1 toughness body in a format of Ren and 6 and Bowmaster. So that part's not great, but I feel like the floor is pretty high for that card already, and it's kind of hard to say where the ceiling is. You've got the new Energy Lightning Bolt, you've got the cantrip as well, so who knows exactly what the best use for that card is going to be, but Is It Prowess, one of the best decks already in Modern, and that card's going to be a nice boost. I guess it's tricky, maybe you'll end up cutting cards like Breach, because if you play Raptor on turn 2 and hit a Breach, that's kind of wasted. But there's not a ton of cards that are going to be bricks. Maybe Breach, maybe some of your removal. Even hitting an Iteration is, fine. It's a better than Cantrip, just actual sorcery speed anticipate on your Raptor, so not bad. Even better if you get lucky and hit a bubble maybe. So definitely really powerful cards. I'm not sure if I'm as high on it as some other people, but I guess I do have it in my top 5 at number 4, so still quite high on it. At number 3, I have the cycle of coming to play untapped double face cards. There are 7 of them, and I think the most exciting is probably Disciple of Freyalize / Garden of Freyalize, which is going to be a natural fit into the Titan decks. You can actually Summoner Spec for it, which is cool. And the body itself is not total flavor text. You might actually play some games where you just cast it and it wins you the game. So these cards definitely have potential. You've got some of the Oops All Spells deck. You already had a bunch of them. Now you have more to pick from, more untapped, especially lands to pick from, and potentially better effects. So that's always a scary thing, whether it's Charbelcher or kind of the self-mill strat. I think these cards are going to see play and might impact Modern in a big way. On to the top 2. Let's see if you can guess what they are. Do you disagree with stuff so far? Just let me know in the comments. Obviously tons of cards to pick from, and I felt like I focus on cards that are just going to be extremely powerful, potentially broken, and there's a ton of role players cards like Grist or the new Black Lorgoyf. So yeah. Anyways, in second, which kind of I'm most worried about cards being too good, I have Flare of Cultivation, the green one, and for me at least, the obvious fit is Scapeshift. It is actually one of the best performing decks in one of the latest Matrix I saw. Had Scapeshift. It was a really small sample, so take with a grain of salt, and it also means people are not gunning for the deck, even though it might be good. If you don't play against it a lot, you don't have a reason to hate on it. But yeah, Scapeshift was up there. They don't play Arboreal Grazer right now, but things might change for Flare of Cultivation. Also just perfectly castable in that archetype, and it just speeds up the format. A lot of people have talked about the card in Yogg potentially was Undying Wolf. As I said, I think that's speeding up a Yogg might not be crucial, and there's only so many basics you want to play, especially now with shifting woodlands. That's even less room for basics probably, but yeah, just really powerful effect. Not sure too many decks are going to want that card, but it might potentially be broken in specifically Scapeshift. So I have Flare of Cultivation at number 2. And at number 1, I obviously have Brain Surge, incredibly powerful effect. Instant. No, I'm joking. Well, I wish, but even though Brain Surge is one of the cards I want to build around, whether it's Miracles or just a card that can fit in pretty much any deck that plays fetch lands, even a deck like Living End, I think that effect can be quite good. Being blue is nice with Force of Negation and Subtlety. But yeah, at number 1, I would say scariest card out of the set and potentially most broken card is kind of a common theme with Flare of Cultivation. It's cheating on mana. It is Ugin Labyrinth. That card, the deck building restriction might be tricky. You don't want to put too many expensive cards in your deck, but the floor is still pretty high. Still, a land that taps for mana. And if ever you get the broken draw, you've got Temple of the Eldrazi. Paired on top of that was all the cool new Eldrazi they're printing. Who knows which ones are going to be end up the best ones, but yeah, definitely really scary card, and definitely for me potential of being most broken card in the set. I could have also mentioned, as potentially maybe a little too good is the Blue Flare as well as the new Merfolk. That could be could have been another honorable mention as kind of a package. A mono blue deck also gets Winter Moon if they want to try and hose people's mana. So Merfolk has been getting stronger and stronger. They keep printing really good ones, and maybe that's the couple cards that really puts Merfolk finally in solid tier 1. So that could have been mentioned. The one card that did make my list, and I'm probably gonna end up being wrong. I infamously called Expressive Iteration a sorcery speed anticipate. That was probably one of my worst reads on spoilers of all time. But yeah, Shifting Woodlands. I'm not saying the card is bad. I'm just saying I don't buy the hype. I think playing a one-color land in Modern that potentially comes into play tapped, and that's not great against Graveyard Hate, is not necessarily that exciting to me, so we'll see. But maybe some of you have seen Aspiring Spike's tier list, and he had it as one of his 5 broken cards. He also had the Blue Flare, which I don't quite have at that level because I feel like there's very few creatures to enable it. Maybe that'll change and people will build around. But yeah, if you look at the most played decks in Modern, there's Murktide that has some blue creatures, but they're pretty good, and you don't really want to sag them unless you kind of have them dead on board and you need the counter to win. You've got Philology Archaeologist, which is amazing with that card, but that's one of very few truly good value cards, so I'm not sure what his reasoning was for having that card as at broken. Maybe it was just a factor of it being good in Merfolk. Maybe it was Philology Archaeologist. Maybe he just thinks like, you've got the new Tamiyo and it's worth building around to have access to that effect. But yeah, these two cards didn't quite make it in my top 5. Anyways, that's it for me. I tried to keep it somewhat short. Let me know what you think about my list, where you agree, where you disagree. Do you want these videos to go longer? Do you care if they're longer? Does it depend? Yeah, the channel's still new, so if you made it this far and like the content, make sure you like, subscribe, and yeah, give me your feedback. Appreciate it.